Hello, survival pimps. I've been struggling with this video. I'm trying to put out a ton of information in a short period of time, and my brain likes to go down the rabbit hole. So I'm having a hard time with it, but we're going to try it again. And if you're watching this right now, that means I was happy with this version. So we're going to cover bug out shelters, both on your way to bug out, and when you get to your bug out spot. Okay? There's a lot of options out there, and I feel that by just going through it and kind of just talking some of my thoughts, it might help some of you guys make a decision on which route you want to go, or maybe help you kind of straighten your kit out a bit and get rid of something, add something else, that kind of thing. Okay? And dudes, comments, man. Get in the comments. I'm sure there's stuff I'm not thinking about and all that. Let's hear about it down below. Okay? So, to know what our goal is, we have to kind of know what we're dealing with, right? And so here's the assumptions we're going to make regarding this conversation, okay? You have to bug out. Whether or not you planned it doesn't matter, okay? If you're a prepper and all of a sudden you have to leave, that's what you got to do. If you are planning on bugging out because you can't stay where you are, like you're too deep in the city, right? Then that's what it is. You're bugging out, all right? You're going to attempt to leave by vehicle, but you need to be ready to travel light and quick to get to your spot on foot. Okay? Also, we're going to make the assumption that you listened to me and that you cached supplies at your bug out spot, because that's very important, dudes. Also, we're going to make the assumption that you're in a group. Now, you might be traveling alone to get there, but when you get there, you're planning on having other people show up and be a part of the team. Okay? That's going to be the best way to do it, dudes. It'd be even better to meet up with homies and head out together. But that's not always going to work for groups, right? That's very dependent on everyone's situation, okay? And your group situation. So let's talk about traveling to your bug out spot, okay? One of the big things that we need to remember is that you're traveling tactically, okay? That means that you are traveling at night, you are sleeping during the day in a rough, gnarly spot that no one wants to go into, and there will be no fires. Those are the big ones, okay? Watch my surviving bugging out video if you want to hear a little bit more about that. I kind of gleamed through it quick in there too, but there's a little bit more detail. At any rate, that's what you're doing. Okay, so first off, any kind of shelter you're bringing with you, you want it to match the terrain. You don't want to be rocking some lightweight $600 two-person REI tent for you and your dog that's orange or yellow, right, dudes? Okay, you don't want to be rocking that, right? So, earth tones is what you're going for. Next, we're going to talk about those high-speed hammocks real quick. And I'm just going to tell you guys, I'm not a fan. Now, I have to preface this by saying I have no personal experience with them. But I'm going to tell you why. Okay? First off, I'm married. I'd rather be sleeping in some kind of shelter or on the ground next to my wife and close to my kids. Okay? I don't want to encumber myself with having to get out of one of those things. Something happened. Okay. 3, they're expensive as shit. All right, the ones I was looking at were like over $600. 4, I don't think my back would ever forgive me if I spent a night on one of those things. All right. 5, they attract the human eye. There's a lot of horizontal lines that are high up. They have a high profile. Okay? I don't think that that's ideal when you're moving tactically. Okay, now, you might disagree. That's fine. If you do, put it in the comments. Let's hear why. Okay, let's have a conversation about it. A lot of people live in very, very thick, dense, wet areas with a lot of poisonous snakes. Okay? It might be a no-brainer for you to use one of those. I just don't think that they're ideal for my situation. All right? So let's get into some of the other options, okay? A GI-style poncho, right, is a great option. They're very lightweight, And not only can you wear them, okay, guys, but you can also turn them into a hooch. Very easily turn them into a hooch. And I'll tell you how we did it in the Army real quick, okay? The hood in the center of the poncho, we tie it up, all right? And so no water would get down inside of it, okay? And then we would just put a bungee cord in each corner and bungee cord them to the lowest part of trees nearby. And then put a bungee cord through that tie on the hood. Not the hood itself, so you get this freaking hood out in the woods like staring out in the middle of nowhere, right? Because that's going to attract attention. But under the tie and attach it to a branch on a tree or something like that to elevate the center of that poncho, and you can sneak under there and sleep under there. It's very low profile, but there's still a profile, guys, and there's still horizontal lines. Think about nature real fast, okay? Nature mostly consists, other than the horizon and some terrain features, it mostly consists of vertical lines, right? Trees, grass, all that. Okay, so horizontal lines tend to draw human attention. You want to get away from that if you can. There's other things you could do with a poncho, though. You could just throw it on top of you and just sleep under it, right? Take a stick, kind of prop it up a bit so you got some air, you know, if that bugs you, right? And sleep that way, okay? The only reason you'd really need to set up a hooch is if you've got some good rain coming down. You don't want to get soaked. You don't want to get hypothermia, right? So there is a real possibility, guys, you're going to have to set up a shelter during this tactical movement, even though you don't want to, because it could mean your life if you don't, right? And you're going to have to be the judge of that as that situation unfolds, right? Bivy sacks, dudes. A lot of guys are going to be like, yeah, bivy sacks. You know, I used the bivy sack quite a bit when I was in the Army. We had a pretty high-speed sleep system. I don't remember what the nomenclature was for it, but it had a Gore-Tex shell, like a green warm weather liner, and then like a black winter liner inside of it. And it was a pretty badass bag. But I will say that Gore-Tex is not waterproof forever. It doesn't last forever, dudes. It starts to leak. The seams start to leak and stuff like that. So bivy sacks can be pretty damn cool, but you know, make sure you got either a quality bag, and I haven't used one since I got out of there, so I'm probably not the best guy to speak to that. As a matter of fact, if you know about good quality bivy sacks that last for a long time and remain waterproof and don't turn into like a sweaty freaking soup sandwich because they don't breathe, let me know in the comments and tell me about it, all right? Just be aware, though, guys, if you've got one of those Gore-Tex, you know, 3-piece Army systems or whatever, I think the Marines are using them too these days, you know, you're going to probably have to waterproof that shit, you know, and not after a long time to make sure it's going to keep you dry. Last thing you want to do is wake up in your bivy sack freaking soaking ass wet because you thought you were like good to go and we're going to pimp this freaking rainstorm that came through during your bug out. You know what I mean? Food for thought. Let's talk about some more options here, okay? Well, the kitty's coming to say hi. Daddy. All right? I've got like every kind of animal you can think of. Let's talk about tarps, okay? We're going to hit on 2 varieties of tarps, and I think it's going to just about cover it, okay? You got those cheap plastic tarps, like the ones from Harbor Freight. Guys, these are so dirt cheap, and they're so lightweight. It's hard not to buy any, okay? You can get camouflage ones. Harbor Freight has sales all the time where they're offering like 50%, even 80% off on these things, okay? So there's really no excuse not to have something with you in your pack, even if you're working on a really tight budget, dudes. That's one way to go. You do need to be aware, though. The eyelets are not strong in them. They will rip right out with any kind of wind. They will flap in the wind and make noise. They have somewhat of a glossy appearance to them. Okay? So they do reflect light. And I think that about sums it up. they'll last reasonably well, even if exposed to like UV for a good bit, stuff like that, guys. So if you're humping something like that while bugging out when you get to camp, it's going to be a useful tool down the road. Okay. Let's talk about canvas tarps. Canvas tarps, there's tons and tons of variety, but for the sake of this conversation, what we're going to use is an 8.5 by 8.5 foot tarp. Okay. There's plenty of those with the eyelets out there. They're just under $70. And you might be able to even do better than that if you look around a bit. I just looked on eBay like a few days ago. And again, the eyelets don't last. I wouldn't become accustomed to using them too much. As a matter of fact, there's methods of tying a tarp up without using eyelets. I would look at that, and I would learn how to do those. I'll do a video in the future. I'll put it on my list. All right. Tarps with tie-outs are way better. Okay, and tie-outs are basically like a loop, fabric loop, okay? They're stitched in all the way around the outside of that tarp and even down on the top of it, you know, and stuff like that. Gives you a lot more options. They're way stronger, but you're also looking at a more expensive tarp now. So same 8.5 foot by 8.5 foot tarp with tie-outs, you're looking at about $250. Okay, so big difference. Tarp of that size in 10 to 11 ounce canvas is going to run you about 9 pounds of weight. So quite a bit more weight than one of those cheap shitty tarps, right? Or poncho. On the flip side, this is a piece of gear that you could use for years to come if you take care of it. You can treat them, you know, even with materials you could make yourself if out in the woods for a long period of time to make them more waterproof. And as long as you're not just leaving them out in the sun year round, guys, they'll actually last for a number of years. Okay, so it's a good piece of kit. But it is going to be 9 pounds humping it out there. And an 8.5 by 8.5 can sleep 2 people in their gear nice and cozy, like nut to butt. You know what I mean? All right, let's talk about cheap Walmart tents. There's plenty of $40, $50, $60 cheap Walmart tents out there that are effectively 2-season tents. Right, dudes? And, you know, they're on the heavier side, right? You're probably looking at somewhere in the 12+ pound range for like a 5-person or larger tent. And again, they're colorful. They create lines that draw human vision. It's not something you want to bring with you bugging out, right? 3-season tents are basically the same, but make them a little more beefy, make them more expensive, and make them heavier, right? Again, not something you want to carry with you. Let's talk about 4-season canvas tents real quick. That's a no-go when it comes to carrying them. I have one, dudes. It's over 100 pounds for the tent and the awning. I'm going to say it's right at 100 pounds. And then the wood stove's like another 35. Okay, you're not carrying it with you. You have to bring it in the truck. Okay, same with the 3-season tent. And you know what? Really the same with that Walmart tent. You just don't want to be humping it with you, man. All right? So if you can manage to make it in your truck to your bug out spot, those things are good to have. And I'll go over them a little bit more. So let's say you do make it. Let's go over some of the benefits of that cheap Walmart tent versus like a tarp setup. It is going to protect you from the elements more. It just is, guys. I mean, you know, you might see a couple degrees in temperature change inside one of those tents. It's not like I've measured it. Okay, I'm just guessing. But there is a bit of a difference. Like your body heat will warm a cheap tent with a rain fly on it. A canvas lean-to, you know, a canvas tarp set up in a lean-to configuration, it's not keeping you any warmer. All it's doing is keeping the rain off of you and some of the wind. Some, right? Okay, so cheap, shitty tents, even they have their place. 3-season tents are obviously even better. These tents are rated for a small amount of snow load. I believe ours is rated to 6 inches. Most of them are rated to 4. Okay. A lot of them come with vestibules, which are nice. If you don't know what that is, it's basically like it's like a enclosed front porch. Okay. So you can leave your wet boots out there, your wet clothes. You could even stack firewood out there to keep it dry, keep it out of the rain. Okay. Kind of a cool feature. Other than that, they're roughly the same. They are more durable. They'll last longer. But they're quite a bit more expensive. Our 6-person 3-season tent, and it's not really a 6-person tent, right, guys? It's like mom and dad plus 2 dogs and some of our shit. Okay. But it was like $360, and we're talking like 8 years ago. Still in pretty damn good shape, though. All right. Still gets the job done. And we still use it. The 4-season canvas tent. If you manage to make it out there in your bug out rig, and you have one of those with you, you are going to be thrilled to have it with you. Right, dudes? Canvas, untreated canvas, is going to last for 2 years with constant exposure, in a lot of North America. Not all of it, right? The Arizona desert or New Mexico is just going to cook the shit out of it, right? They're not going to last as long down there. But in a lot of other places, they're going to last you're going to get 2 years, okay? And if you got a wood stove as well, man, now it's really nice, right? Because humans need fire to survive, dudes. And, do you need it in your tent? You don't need it, depending on how cold it gets. You might need it. I've done minus teens without any kind of heat overnight, and I'm still here. Does it suck? Well, your face is cold all night long, and it sucks getting up and getting dressed. But you really want to get dressed in your damn freaking under your blankets and your sleeping bag and shit. But you can do it. But morale, guys, think about morale. If you have the ability to get a canvas tent out there and you've got the money to spend on it, then I'd say do it. It also buys you time. It buys you 2 years to build something better, which we're going to get into for a moment here. All right. I will tell you that my canvas tent, a bell tent, 16-foot diameter, and wood stove was about $1,700 to give you a pretty good idea. All right. We had to think about it before we spent the money, dudes. It was not, it's not pocket change for us. All right. So what do you do once you're finally out there? Well, you build something more permanent. Okay. And I'd like to challenge you guys to take a look at earth-style buildings that the Native Americans used to make in your area. They used to build these all over the place. I can tell you that in the area in which I live, what they used to do is create a wooden frame, all right? And then they would weave willow through it to create willow walls. They would pile grass on top of it, and then they'd cover it in earth, okay? Now, what are the benefits to the Earth Lodge? Well, one of them is that you don't have to hump the damn thing out there with you. That's nice, because that shit would suck. Another thing is thermal mass. I just did a video on thermal mass and thermal load, okay? And burning a fire in an earth lodge like that is going to heat those walls, and that, those walls are going to give off heat at night, keep you more warm in the wintertime, and in the summertime you're going to get the reverse effect. The ground is going to be cool, the walls are going to be cool, you're going to have a nice place to sleep at night and a nice place to get out of the sun in the middle of the day. All right? So definitely look at those, guys. Beyond that, there's log cabins. There's all kinds of things you can make. All kinds of options, dudes. But I would very much recommend you look at what the Native Americans did and think thermal mass. It's very efficient. There may come a time where you're 2 years into SHTF. Things are starting to recover to a degree. Communities are starting to come back together, and it's time to build a log cabin. All right? And then when you get there, you're there. And that's the time to start working on that. All right? Let's talk about something else real quick. We want to talk about a little bit of the versatility of some of the shelter options we just spoke about, okay? Especially when it comes to caching. It's a no-brainer, dudes, to throw a cheap Harbor Freight tarps in your cache. It's a no-brainer. Cheap Walmart tent, right? They're not that expensive. Seal them in a big food saver bag. 3-season tent. Can you bury a 3-season tent that you paid $400 for? I don't know that I could do it. And definitely not burying a 4-season tent, right? Got to have some other setup at your bug out spot to have that kind of shit out there, like a shed that's mice and pack rat proof, right? And 2-legged varmint proof, right? Cabin or something else, right? You're kind of going to have to bring that with you unless you have some other setup already at your bug out spot. Let's talk real quick about the canvas tarp and the versatility of it, okay? I think it's a good piece of kit, dudes, and I think it's pretty important because you could find yourself out there in this extended shit hit the fan situation where, you know, your group now has a camp that's established and you've been hunting, but it's gotten harder and harder to find game and people are going out for extended periods of time. You know, to be able to take a good, solid piece of kit like a canvas tarp with you on what could turn into a multi-day hunting trip is a good thing. It'd be good to have a piece of gear like that, all right? So just think about that one. I think that just about wraps it up, dudes. Let's hear it down below. Comments. What did I not think about? Like, share, subscribe, okay, as well. And check out my Patreon link in the description. Come support the channel and get all that extra content that I have on Patreon that you can't get anywhere else. All right, guys, that's it. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one.